All right, well, let's do the traditional picks across the first round of the NBA playoffs. If you just stumbled across the video in the channel, hit the subscribe button. I will be covering all the playoffs, not just the Warriors, all the way through into the WNBA season with the Valkyries. But let's start where it matters most for most of you. Warriors Rockets, the 2-7 matchup, Sunday evening in Houston, where is it still the Toyota Center? The Warriors have fared very well in that arena. And look, not to Houston, by all accounts, I haven't been there, is a great city. But as far as a home court advantage and a crowd, it's not that great, right? It's not OKC, it's not Indiana, it's not even Minnesota. Like there's some other places where there's a legit home court advantage as far as crowd. And Houston doesn't hold that. But let's start at the top with Steph Curry in this matchup. And the headline going into this is, 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, they held Steph to 3 points. Amen Thompson, looks like an all-world defender and is going to be first team all defense, probably his entire career. There's no doubt about that. But I think the context around holding Steph to 3 points was he had just, come off a 3-day bender, a 3-game bender of like 123 points in 3 games. They had gone through Memphis, lost the Lakers, the Nuggets, right? And Houston caught him on the end of that big emotional run, that big winning week. So there's that. At the same time, make no mistake about it, Houston is legit a top defense in this league. And you see how many guys they can throw at Steph. They start with Amen. You got Eason, you've got Van Fleet, the younger Holiday off the bench, all these guys, they can throw different bodies at him. And then the switchability outside of Şengün or when Adams is on the floor, they can take away the screens by switching and containing. But just simply the ability for Amen Thompson to stay attached to Steph. And as unfortunate as it is, but like the biggest talking point of this series in my eyes really is like, how are they going to referee that? Because in that 3-point game, Amen 2 hands on Steph off the ball all the time. There was a ton of holding, a ton of grabbing. And so how is that officiated? Whether it's at Chase Center or the Toyota Center, is it consistent or does it change? Are there games where they let Houston mug Steph and then all of a sudden they're not and there's whistles? That's kind of been the inconsistency of the NBA whistle, unfortunately. But I think that it's important for Steph. And I know this may sound a little bit silly in it above him and his integrity, but why not work on selling some of that stuff? And as far as like, okay, they're holding, I think things that can draw the attention of the referee's eyes and sell it is swinging an arm up, right? Like you're getting held, like swing an arm up. And then if you can do some of the Euro head stuff, right? That, and then the good old Chris Paul, the good old CP, where you take a step or two when you get some space and then stop short and take the bump, Give me a minute to tell you about the X6 Pro Max. It's not a phone. It's not a phone. What it is it's a hell of a massage gun from Bob and Brad. This is their 2025 model. And you want to talk about power? Get this going here. That's just the first setting. Hold on, look at this. 55 pounds of stall force. Basically 35% stronger than the previous guns. You're going to get the 6 attachments, right? Including that heat and cold head, the one that I like to use, right? And then 5 custom massages. I don't care where you go. You ain't getting 5 custom massages, And obviously Bob and Brad, a reputable, legit quality product. We know this. Longtime sponsor of the show by now. But to me, these massage guns, they're essential. It's not just recovery, it's prevention. Right? Because you build up this lactic acid, we get knots from training, tension, just life, right? And so not only are you working them out so you can train more often, but with what comes with knots and lactic acid is a lack of mobility, which then leads to injuries. So it's not just recovery, it's prevention. And again, if you're looking for one of these massage guns, this X6 Pro Max, their newest version, it's their strongest version, and frankly, their best version. So go ahead, click the link in the description right now for a coupon code off this X6 Pro Max from Bob and Brad. At the same time, we know Steph is chipped up. The tailbone is still, precarious. And then that right thumb, and make no mistake about it, Houston knows this. So like when Steph does get downhill, they are top locking him and he's making those cuts. Not only is it important for Draymond to not try to hit these home run passes if it's not there, but Steph, and that's why I think we've seen him over the last week or so bring back the floater and the runner so much. He's been shooting a lot of runners and a lot of floaters because, one, I don't think he wants to take a big hit on that tailbone, and two, he doesn't want to get raked across that right thumb, which feels inevitable in a playoff series like this. And again, Houston, we know Ime Udoka and their mentality, they're going to target it. Let's say what it is. And as simple as it is, I think we all know as Warrior fans, like, can Steph have big games or not, right? Like, does that kind of determine things? And, does he remain healthy? Obviously. But yeah, I think the refereeing of Steph is the first thing that comes to my mind, and how much they're going to let Houston get away with. And can Steph kind of learn some of the dark arts from Jimmy in selling some of that stuff, the off-ball stuff in particular, where, I think Steph, he plays, he almost has too much basketball integrity. But sprinkle a little Trae Young, a little Chris Paul in there to back these young guys off. The last thing that I'll say about the refereeing, if we're going to take it there with the conspiracy theories, and I know this doesn't exactly match up to what happened the other night against Memphis, but if we are going to play that game, second round, Warriors-Lakers, you would imagine the NBA would want that matchup rather than Rockets-Lakers, right? You'd imagine they'd want Warriors-Lakers second round because that will do more views than the NBA Finals this season. So, as a Warrior fan, Dub Nation, you'd hope that would be the train of thought as far as how the whistles go. Now, my X factor, there could be several, right? But watching Quinton Post's impact on that game in Memphis, I was like, because remember, in that beatdown that Houston gave us 10 days ago, there was no GP2 and there was no Quinton Post. And we know what GP2 brings to the table as far as an on-ball guy for Jalen Green who really put that game away. We had no answer for him. But Quinton Post is the pressure valve to this on-ball aggressive defense from Houston. The pick and pop, right? And then as a trailer in transition. In that Memphis game, how many times did you see Edey in transition? His instinct, when you're a 7-footer, when you're a true center, you're going to run back to the paint every time. We see Looney's gotten better with it over time, but these true centers, when there's an exchange and you're changing ends, their natural instinct is to get to the paint. And Quinton lit Edey up for 2-3 threes in that first half, just simply because Edey had to stop and get back out. And I think you could do the same with Şengün and Steven Adams when he's on the floor. Like, if you just match Quinton's minutes with Steven Adams' minutes, I think Quinton has the potential to play Adams off the floor. And that would be nice because of his rebounding and his size and his rim protection. He is really their only rim protector. They kind of do it by committee. But I've just been super impressed with Quinton, and he'd been in the right spot defensively, and he just looked ready for the moment in that Memphis game as far as not only, is he going to space the floor and really open up the offense and be a safety valve when they're top locking, you still can't hit the back door and they're just all over, we can't get it to him. You can pull whatever big's on the floor out, and we know he's got the quickest trigger in the West at that size. And so I think he can be a huge factor. Obviously, he's got to stay out of foul trouble. In Houston, outside of Jalen Green, right, they don't have a bunch of guys that are going to really like attack him and pick and roll per se. You could say Jalen Green, but it's not really his style of play to be a foul merchant. He wants to create space and play in space. And so if Quinton can give us 20, 25 minutes, to me, I think he could be a huge X factor in this series. The next point I want to bring up is Steve Kerr. Is Kuminga going to play? I think most of us feel like this would be a matchup where he could shine. He's had some big games against Houston. But Steve has to be more adaptable. He has to be more adaptable. If Pods or Moody are cold and struggling in the pressure and struggling with the size and athleticism of Houston, Steve cannot be afraid to go to Kuminga or go to Guy Santos, who could be very important in this because you know the deal with Houston. The offense is riggedy, but they kill you on the offensive glass. And it kind of goes hand in hand. When you can't shoot, there's a lot of opportunities for offensive rebounds. And so when you watch them, they're going to the glass every time because they know they don't make many perimeter shots. They can get hot. Green can get hot, right? But you also, what's the old saying? Whatever a team likes to do, you got to do to them. And so you can hit them back on the offensive glass and hit them in transition because they all do go to the offensive glass. But something that Houston did in that prior matchup was they put Şengün on Moses Moody. That was the strategy. That's where they wanted to hide him. They were like, Moody, we don't think he's going to be able to attack him. And if Moses, who, look, the defense has been tremendous. The shot's not dropping, and offensively, he's been in a slump. If he can't knock down that shot and take advantage of the Şengün matchup, I think you got to look elsewhere, whether that be Guy, Kuminga, a combination of both, because again, outside of Jalen Green, I know Fred VanVleet is crafty and he's a little guy, but they don't have these like guys that are on an island going to break down Guy or Kuminga. I think that the matchups are favorable for them. So I know Moses is going to he deserves the opportunity to do that. But if he can't make them pay for putting Şengün on him, I think Kerr has got to look elsewhere. The other thing that I would say that could help free Steph or neutralize Amen Thompson and his pressure ball defense is if you do play Kuminga. Now, this goes without saying for Jimmy, right? We know Jimmy's going to have to continue this scoring barrage because, look, Steph may have a big game here and there in the series, but Steph's not going to average 35 points in this series. Like, we know that, right? But if Kuminga does get into this rotation, as he should, the inverted pick and roll with Steph. So Amen's draped all over him. He doesn't want to leave him. And whoever's on Kuminga, whether it's Tari Eason, whomever it may be, maybe you run an action to get Jalen Green on him and let him get downhill. But again, Quinton post, to me, the X factor is what allows Kuminga, because I know that Kerr, according to Kerr, Kuminga, Jimmy, Draymond, he doesn't want to play that front line. But if you put Quinton in there, then it becomes more versatile because obviously he's standing at the three-point line. And you can run those inverted pick and rolls where Steph's setting it and let Kuminga get downhill, get to the foul line, and that's going to be key. And that's what I really like about, obviously a lot of things about Jimmy, but the way we've been getting into the bonus. What do you have, 18 free throws the other night, right? But it not just Jimmy doing it himself, but if you have Guy and you have Kuminga in there and we're aggressive downhill attacking Şengün, it helps once we get to the bonus, when it gets tight, now you just give the ball to Jimmy, he's getting there. If it doesn't even have to be a shot attempt, he's getting there. And so, yeah, I really hope to see Kuminga in this matchup. And I think that Şengün, one, obviously attack him defensively wherever they're trying to hide him. I understand that he is their offensive hub. Green has gotten a lot better, passing the ball, coming downhill, and making reads. But, I don't want them to overreact to Şengün. He can score 30. He can. He's fully capable of that. Big bag. And I think his bag almost hurts him to an extent because he gets a little carried away. He gets a little too cute with the ball, and it's almost as if he wants style points on top of the points that he's getting anyway. And I think it leads to him getting inefficient. He can get carried away. And so, look, if he's hot, I'm not saying you're never going to send a two at him or shade the help at him. But, the Draymond thing, it goes without saying, Şengün, Dillon Brooks, Draymond's got to keep a cooler head. We know this, obviously. But what I'm getting at here is I don't necessarily want to see them doubling Şengün that much. Like, let's see him beat us. And I think that it really does their offense a favor when you send two, because that's how they operate. That's what they want. But, Trace, haven't brought up Trace. Is Looney, Looney's going to get the first look because of his rebounding and boxing out, and boxing out's going to be such a key aspect of this matchup. But I'd like to see Trace match up with Şengün. I think between Trace and Draymond, I think you can match up on him without zoning up and sending two all the time. And then their half-court offense becomes really stagnant because while he has great vision and he can make flashy passes, I don't think he necessarily wants to do it. That's not his nature to get you 10 assists. He really wants to score, and he wants to do it with style. And so play into that. I'd love to see that. As far as Jalen Green goes, one of the, most explosive athletes in the league. I had said it in the breakdown of that last game. He might get the most separation of anybody in the league. When he turns the corner or he hits you with that double step back, he's getting 5-6 feet of space. And then how vertical he is, we know he levitates. He doesn't jump, he levitates. And so, easier said than done, but you got to bother Jalen Green at his pickup. When he that final dribble, when he picks it up to pocket the ball, you got to swipe and try to close the distance there, because you're not going to do anything with his release. He elevates too well. It's a nice, high, smooth, pretty release. You got to bother him at his pickup. And I would go under the screens. If he gets hot, you got to change it. I'm not saying you're going to do the same thing on every possession, but I think it's the lesser of evils, especially in his first big playoff moment. Let's see if he, how he's shooting the three, especially early in the series. If he gets hot, you change the scheme, but I'm inviting him to turn the corner and trying to play that mid-range game. Make him take tough twos and that fadeaway rather than going over the top and where he can go all the way and get to the rim and he can be special. But yeah, I'm curious how y'all are feeling. Let me know your 3 keys to this matchup for the Warriors. And again, Kerr, adaptability, not just within the rotation, but I think that within the offense, they have the ability to take away the split actions and the off-ball movement, space and pace offense because of their athletes and switchability. I just hope that he's not afraid to go to just a basic pick and roll, flatten it out, and do that more often. As well as, I know I was on his neck. I just couldn't believe he didn't take that timeout towards the end there after the baseline, after the 2 free throws there, because we know how many times have we had these careless turnovers, inbounding the ball, with less than a minute to go in a game. I don't know why you would invite that. So I hope that Kerr can show some adaptability and a little more control in the clutch moments of what we're trying to do. Don't just let them flow, right? Don't just let them flow. But like I said, I don't think this is necessarily a series that Steph dominates with his scoring, right? It's his presence and how they have to react to him, getting to the line, drawing fouls, opening up things for the others, where Pods, Moody, they're going to have to find their shot and perform. Otherwise, next man up. That's the beauty of being 10 deep. But I believe in our young guys. I know Moses is in a shooting slump. Pods has had a rough couple games. I think they're ready for the moment. And in a 7-game series that's going to be this intense with this much smoke, I think they're built for it. And so I've got the Warriors in 6. Let's hop around the West real quick here. This video is running a little longer than I thought. The Lakers and the Wolves. I like the Lakers. They're going to get a crazy whistle, as they typically do. I just don't trust the Wolves' collective IQ. Outside of Mike Conley, who is in the final stages of his career, I don't trust Jaden McDaniels. I don't trust Julius Randle. It's not their talent. It's their decision-making when it matters. Ant still figuring it out, right? And so the question I think would be, the variance is, the Lakers are very streaky from 3. How are they shooting the 3? And do they rebound well enough? Like, how Minnesota can stay in the series is on the glass, and if they can shoot the 3 ball better. But I like the Lakers in that matchup. This Clippers-Denver matchup that everyone seems to be so intrigued with, I don't think it's that close. I think the Clippers get them in 5, maybe 6. I'll give Jokic 2 games, but they don't defend. They don't have depth. They've got a brand new coach. And I think that people aren't understanding that Zubac, well, look, the Joker's inevitable. We understand that, but he's going to hold up all right. I think he's going to answer back and give the Clippers a double-double, and he gives them the size and understanding and familiarity where they don't have to completely cave in to Jokic and let him dominate like that. And so I think the Clippers are going to win this relatively easy in that 4-5 matchup. OKC is awaiting Dallas-Memphis. It sucks that that looked like a high ankle sprain the other night. I don't know what the report is. Obviously, he finished the game, but that's not something that's going to be, healed by if they were to advance into this first round. Dallas, man, Dallas, that front line. I have a feeling Dallas may come out of this final play-in game here tonight, and that front line with Lively, AD. AD just needs someone to put a battery in his back. That's the problem with him, right? He can't do it on his own. He can't just be like, I'm the guy, right? And that's the theory behind Kai when he's healthy. But you look at the size of this Dallas team, with even in the backcourt at this point with Dinwiddie, Max Christie, Clay, Najee Marshall, and then Lively, AD, Gafford's coming in. I'm curious to see. I guess I'm pulling for Dallas for Clay in a little bit of a way, as well as I think that it's interesting to see OKC try to have to deal with that size because, I don't know if SGA is going to be able to get in the paint and do what he does. He's shooting the three better, and SGA, he's going to score, but I'm curious to see that matchup. But obviously, I'm not taking either of those teams that come out to beat the Thunder, but I'm just curious to see what Dallas's size could do potentially to this Thunder team in the first round. Moving over to the East, not as many good matchups, right? Detroit and New York is the one that I think people are looking at for like just the smoke, right? And the physicality and how tough that's going to be. And that's, if I'm a Knicks fan, that's what I'm worried about is not that you're not going to win the series, but are you able to get out of it unscathed? Just how physical in the identity that Detroit's built, right? Motorcade, and they've built this toughness and tenacity, beef stew. Like that's going to be scrappy. Brunson, is he all the way 100%? I'm also curious, can Cat stay out of foul trouble come playoff time? And Tibbs's rotations are so tight. And so, yeah, I like the Knicks. I think most people like the Knicks, right? But what do they look like coming out of that Pistons series? Are they limping out of that Pistons series? Milwaukee, Indiana, 4-5. That's another one with a little bit of drama behind it. I like Indiana. I like Carlisle as a coach better. I like their depth, their confidence. I guess what I'm curious to see if Halliburton remains aggressive. There's just these times where Halliburton, and that's where I may favor when it's close. If it's clutch minutes, I favor Milwaukee because Giannis's ability to put his head down and just do what he does. And that's where I think Indiana does struggle in clutch games. I don't know the stats on it, but when I'm watching them, Halliburton, the ball's going to be in his hands. He doesn't really want to take the big shot. I know he made the game winner against him in the corner, but I'm curious to see if Halliburton's going to remain aggressive in clutch minutes and be the leader of this Pacers team. You can go to Siakam, but that's not a great matchup against the Bucks for him. They've got Kuz and Giannis to go at him, but I like the Pacers in that 4-5 matchup. Celtics, Orlando. Orlando, man, they're kind of the same way I feel about the Knicks and Pistons, where they're not going to beat Boston, obviously, but they're going to make it rugged. They're going to muck it up. And can Boston come out of that unscathed? Jaylen Brown's knee is something to pay attention to. He's been in and out of the lineup, and I think he got shots in it and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see. Who's Cleveland waiting on? Miami or Atlanta? That's no picnic for the Cavs. That's not a great reward to be the 1 seed out east. Either of those teams. Atlanta's offensive firepower, like on any given night, and then Miami, they're starting to show like the dark arts again, post Jimmy Butler. I feel bad for the Bulls, what is it, 3 times in a row? But Miami, we know on this stage is not an easy out for anyone. Anyway, let me know what y'all think on these first round matchups and specifically the keys to this Warriors-Rockets matchup. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.